Hello and welcome to all the men and women of the West. I'm Joe here with Mies McCall Dan.
Hello and greetings.
And last time on Reboot, Megabyte took over mainframe and Raceland got sent off into the web. Teleported away, and Tanis blamed all of his problems on Raceland because it's the thing to do. Caramon collapsed because reasons. Every chapter from here to I think the end of part 2. And we're going to basically be doing almost 100 to 150 pages here, because why not? The Chronicler in the Mage chapter has Raceland arriving in the library of Ostinus, whom in this book is introduced as the Grand Scribe of the Cosmos. He's Gillian, just in human shape, and he's chronicling the whole of Krynn's history. And Raceland interrupts his work, for which he is not impressed. Ostinus, That said, Raceland ends up begging for permission to have access to the Great Library, gets it, only to realize he needs a key to open up the secrets of those books, and has a temper tantrum. Then he's dying, and Ostinus happens upon him, lectures him a little, and is accused of not caring, only for Ostinus to then reveal a little too much. Raceland then decides to make an even bigger bargain with Feasta and Dantalus. Thankfully, he's later going to walk back this deal and completely screw over Feasta and Dantalus, but that's a story for another time. As for the chapter Palanthas, chapter 6, sees Flint and Tass investigating the Shoiken Grove, and before that, though, they reveal that Tass did see Raceland. Flint, it's revealed in Dragon of the Hourglass Mage, it went off to meet with him. As for Laurana, she has a meeting with Ostinus revealing the lore behind the Tower of Palanthas, which no one else cares to look at because it's so horrific and misshapen. Laurana thinks that it adds to the beauty of Palanthas in that you see an imperfection so that you can better appreciate the perfection all around it. Which, fair enough.
That is a good sentiment.
Of course, the next chapter, which is when we really see Laurana start to, in my view, become intolerable as a character in this book. I know we're going to get our haters, a fair share of them. This is where it feels really annoying because Laurana prays, "Please, Gunther, let your choice be a wise one. So many have died because of political maneuvering. Let this be an end to it." Only for Gunther to choose actually the worst possible person to be the general. Therefore, I appoint to fill the position of leadership of the Knights of Salamia, Laurana of the Royal House of Qualinesti. The reason I say he chooses the worst possible person is because, as we'll soon see later in the book, the really weird thing is that those who followed Laurana up to this point, faithfully and lovingly, now object. Sir Patrick ends up objecting. "I cannot accept this. I don't know why, but I suddenly cannot accept this." No, I added the part, "I don't know why, but I suddenly can't." Lady Laurana is a valiant warrior, certainly, but she has never commanded men in the field. Have you? No, but that's different. She's a woman. Yeah, okay. Wrong character to have object to this, given that he was handpicked by her as one of her lieutenants. I have no idea where this objection comes from. So we're led to believe that Sir Patrick's been pretty faithful and loyal to her. These two had served longest. She knew both men to be valiant soldiers and valiant and honorable men. They had both fought bravely at the High Clare's Tower.
The narrative is all over the place with that.
While I know there's been those who said that this is Ostinus who's recording this, if you need to have this sort of scene, don't have it be a character Laurana just admitted had served faithfully and the longest alongside Sir Markham. Subtracts from the scene and the overall narrative. We then get Ostinus's actual point of view and kind of Gilthanas. We get the story of how the eggs have been corrupted and how Takisa said, how shall I put it? Gone back on her word. As far as the keeping the deal between the two alignment of dragons. She had been perverting good dragon eggs into draconians. This should not have surprised anyone. That said, Silvara and Gilthanas ended up investigating this and having to endure a lot of horror and trauma. It should be noted that Alhana apparently showed up to the Sylvanesti and Qualinesti, and in exchange for her marrying Porthios, the Porthios and his father will agree not to just backstab everyone in the back, which includes the Sylvanesti, the Knights, and Kagonesti. I really feel bad for Alhana. Gilthanas also carries with him the knowledge that Kitiara was bragging about how much Tanis loved her. The response is from Laurana to throw him out. We've already done a stream that I'll probably turn into a video all about the scene that takes place, so no need to analyze it here. There's already a lengthy analysis that we did, which was quite the headache. The next chapter is basically a battle scene, but it's revealed at the end that the lance had been on the dwarf's right side while he was clutching his left side, near where his heart is. Should not have been in the air. Then we have Ariakis, who visits Kitiara, is stopped from being too mean to her by Lord Soth. Kitiara ends up trying to charm Ariakis, which doesn't exactly work. She says to him regarding Lord Soth's story, I know them now almost as well as he does. Call for another carafe of wine, and I'll tell you his tale if you have time. I have time, though I must leave in the morning if I am to send the citadels. Kitiara smiled at him, the charming, crooked smile that so many had found so captivating. Thank you, my lord. I will not fail you again. Ariakis is weighing in with his flying citadels, which starts to tip things in his favor. It's almost more a battle of tech than it is of competent generals. Now, that said, although I don't think much of Kitiara's generalship, she is a very capable warrior and she's a pretty darn good politician. She's a very clever person. And Ariakis is no fool, but he does get fooled by her. But he's not charmed by her. And he tells her, I can promise you that, Kitiara, if you do, you will find his fate, referring to her failing, a pleasant one compared to your own. She then sings the Song of Lord Soth, which I will not recite because that's for you all to read. And seriously, if you don't have a copy of this book, go buy this book. It's actually genuinely worth it. Becaris, who has been sleeping fitfully in his cell, awakened by Laurana so that she could, because she was contacted by Kitiara, who basically invited her to turn traitor. I don't know how else to word it, but it is turning traitor. You're going to take your hostage, whom is the lover of the enemy general, go exchange him to the enemy general without any guards, without permission from your own captains and whatnot, or your own lord, because Lord Gunther's technically still her boss, and you are going to exchange him for nothing, and then agree to go into the enemy castle to see Tanis half-elven, whom, as far as you know, is a traitor. This smells of surrender, or at least of willingly handing yourself over. This is the sort of military blunder, I am going to be honest, I have never heard of in all my years of reading history, which is quite a long time.
And it's not like Laurana didn't get any warnings. The fact that one of the few things Flint and Raistlin agree upon is that Kitiara is not to be trusted.
Yeah, she has no reason to trust Kitiara. None whatsoever. Kitiara murders Sturm in front of her and then goes, we're both chicks and all, and lolls out of there. Tells her, well, I've been seeing Tanis. Ha, I got the man. This is not the time to act like Betty with Veronica. You have an army behind you. And the fact that everybody is telling her, even Tass, this is not a good idea. But Karis ends up pretty much saying, you're really going to hand me over? Wow, okay, I'm going to have a fun time with you later. He's basically saying, yeah, this is not a good idea on your part. Her own hostage says, this is not a good idea on your part.
Everyone is on the same page when it comes to Kitiara. Everyone says she is not to be trusted. Even her own minions are saying, do not trust her. If Flint and Raistlin agree on something, you listen to them.
And what I love is this line. Well, I don't love it, but... So it is a trap, Laurana said softly, looking around in a daze. Tanis isn't dying. He's not even there. I've been a fool. Laurana clearly believes in game overs and continues because, I don't know. And the fact that she's so dazed, she goes again like, I've been a fool. You just have... Becaris decides he's going to violate Laurana. Once again, I'm baffled by the sheer lack of logic on Laurana's end. Now, thankfully, she is not mistreated by Becaris, because Lord Soth and the plot come in to save her. Because, of course, the writers are not going to let that happen to her, because plot armor. No, I'll actually freely call it plot armor. On the other hand, I really don't feel such a scene would be right, and I don't like the idea of that happening to Laurana. But I just think, in this situation, I'm of the same opinion as Margaret Wace. Do not write this scenario. Tracy Hickman, I believe, insisted on this scenario. He had his head up in the clouds. Wace ended up complaining about this particular situation very loudly, apparently, according to the annotations. The annotated edition, which I do have in my other room, and I do occasionally crack open. She did not like this. She actually thought Laurana was acting like a ninny, in her words, and disapproved of this. Hickman insisted, and then years later went, yeah, this was stupid. If only a do-over. Maybe instead of all the wacky time travel stories, maybe what they should have done was just rewrite that part and release a new edition. And I know some people would say no. Like, look at Tolkien. He re-released The Hobbit with a few differences so that it syncs better with The Lord of the Rings. after that first edition ran out. Basically, you had the first edition, which was not cohesive with the rest of Lord of the Rings and the Silmarillion. Then you had the second or third edition. I forget which one it was. I think it was the second. He lined it up. So it makes sense for a writer to do this. Rewrites are natural. And as a reader, I don't mind if the writer's like, oh, I made a mistake here. I'm going to re-release. Correction here. Sorry about that. Especially in fantasy. Fantasy is meant to be a work in progress. At least until a certain point. Really don't like what's done with Laurana as a character there. It does drag the novel down a little bit. And meanwhile, Tanis has to try to get the truth out of Barum, which is not easy. Caramon is dreaming of what Raistlin did during the test. And we get a really creepy scene with Persalion, at least from the point of view of Caramon. Caramon says, you can't stop me. Magic. Tricks to keep kids amused. True power. Bah. It's not worth getting killed over. Your brother believes it is, Persalion said softly. Shall I show you how much he believes in his magic? Shall I show you true power? That sounds like the monologue of a supervillain. And this is a guy we're supposed to believe is a heroic character. Yeah, right. He may wield a light, but this guy's no good guy. And of course he then tortures Caramon. Like, what else can you call it? Torture. I know it's the truth of what happened in the test, but the way he reveals that, and the fact that Raistlin never gave his consent for his brother to watch him during the test.
Persalion had no right doing that.
Because here's the thing. The test is supposed to be private. The test givers, they know what happens during the test. The one taking on the test knows what happens. But there's actually an agreement that it'll never be shown to anyone outside basically the equivalent of that room. Persalion broke every oath of the Order of Sorcery. And here's the problem. He did it to torture Caramon and to turn one brother against the other as a contingency plan. Jeez, we might as well call this guy Batman. Raistlin never consented to this. And after the test, Raistlin was broken. Slew his sister, which is all sorts of horrifying. Then the Sea Elves, basically the Dragonlance equivalent of mermaids, escorts Tanis' group to the surface. Tanis arrives near Kalaman, who find that the forces of Solamnia are in a bit of chaos. And Tanis ends up... You have Flint, who starts sobbing like a baby. Gilthanas blames Tanis at first, because you were dating Kitiara while we were fighting for our lives out there. Gilthanas, who tells him, and I will pray to the gods nightly that whatever cruel fate befalls her, you will meet the same thing, only 100 times worse. Don't you think I'd accept that if it would bring her back? Gilthanas walks away. And the thing is, Sky, Kitiara's dragon, delivers the message that Kitiara wants Barum delivered to her. Okay, this is where it's really funny. Gilthanas will call for the Knights of Solamnia and the elves of both the Qualinesti and Sylvanesti tribes to lay down their arms. Like, they're gonna listen to him. And like Gilthanas will even give that order. I know that he loves Laurana, but I'm not sure if he really would give the order. Gilthanas is a man of duty. Like, duty is everything. This would mean burning Qualinesti. And much as he loves his sister, I don't think he'd really burn Qualinesti in a way. Or, like, abandon her people. As for Flint Fireforge will require of his people that they do the same. You have every dwarf out there who's going to go, who? And why should we care? Flint is not very famous. Basically, it's going to be, Flint is telling you to lay down your arms. Who? Flint, the janitor.
I was just thinking that.
But except there's not going to be anyone going, hold on, Flint. It's just going to be, yeah, okay, can you line that shot up with your hatchet? Like, the dwarves aren't going to listen. What's in Kitiara's head? This is where Tanis has a new idea. Tanis, being smart, when he puts his mind to it, comes up with a weird idea. I have a suggestion, my lord, he said respectfully to Lord Caliph. You have a person here well qualified to take over the defense of this city. You, half-elf? Interrupted Gilthanas with a bitter smile. No, said Tanis gently. You, Gilthanas. An elf? Yeah, you were led by an elf before, you buffoon. He was in Tarsus. He has had experience fighting the Draconians and the dragons. The good dragons trust him and will follow his judgment. And you have Gilthanas, who says, if I can help save the people of this city, that will be reward enough. As for being of different races, perhaps I have learned enough to know that doesn't make any difference. It never did. Tell us what to do, Caliph said eagerly. First, I would like a word of Tanis, Gilthanas said, seeing the half-elf prepare to depart. Certainly, there is a small room through the door to your right where you may talk in private. So they kick back a couple of brewskis, drink up, and decide to have a party. I'm kidding. No, actually, no. They don't do that. Although the brewskis are there, but they, as narrators, are lying to us and saying they're not downing a few beers. They obviously are. Because whenever I read it near the end, I definitely read it with a slur. Okay. Or I've been drinking when I'm reading. You have Gilthanas, who says he has always despised humans. Not really. He says he did, but he didn't really. because remember Theros and the people of Solus. Gilthanas guesses that Tanis wants to head to Naraka on his own, with Tanis' idea to do basically a suicide mission black ops operation to rescue Laurana and stop Ariakas. Which, this is actually the sort of mission that Tanis excels at, because he's always led Black Ops operations like this, so he's the only guy for the job! On the other hand, given Raistlin was wandering and just wanting to destroy Ariakas, I wonder if Ariakas was on borrowed time. Probably. Kitiara would have led the army into the pavement, into the mud. And Gilthanas offers up a very heartfelt apology, and he admits he's still learning about love, especially as he's learned a lot about pain. But that's my problem. This is where it gets really dumb. And obviously he's had a few brewskis. Yeah, the speech doesn't make much sense. Unless he's drunk. At which point you can rationalize it. I'm joking, enough trolling. In all seriousness, I don't think this makes much sense. But the overall idea is that Gilthanas finally makes complete peace with Tanis. The two have been on the verge of peace, but not entirely. The entire book trilogy. They've clashed. Obviously, Gilthanas has not been a very good bro. No, he's treated Tanis like trash a few times. Let's be honest. But here he ends the scene with farewell, brother. So it's very heartfelt. And a beautiful mention of Sturm, as you have Tanis who asks, did they bless Sturm, referring to the gods? He loved, didn't they? How do you know? Tanis' hand closed over Gilthanas'. He shook his head. He wanted to believe. It sounded wonderful, beautiful, just like Tales of Dragon. As a child, he'd wanted to believe in dragons too. Now, this is where I'm actually going to say this. The he here, is it Sturm or Tanis?
That is an excellent question.
When you read it, like straight up, you'll think of Tanis. But Sturm dreamt of dragons too. I don't want to say misread, but I guess you could say misread it. And if you're under the impression that Tanis is still thinking about Sturm, you can read a commentary there about how, as a child, he, Sturm, wanted to believe in dragons too. But the sad thing is about this part is that it shows that Tanis is no longer much of a dreamer. And Sturm, as a child, was a dreamer. Sadly for Sturm, he grew up into a broken shell.
In the end, before he passed.
Tanis at least has some faith and hope restored to him by this point. But it doesn't make this part of the story any less of a grim read. We did get a good scene of Caravan saying, I'm coming with you. It does read pretty well. I'm going to be honest. Well, okay, the Ostana stuff in Palanthas was interesting. The battles, we only really saw one battle, then the rest is all in the background. And I didn't really like that. These are complaints I have.
I want to see more battles, and I know it would have stretched the book out, but they could have used a bit more attention and focus.
But the battle is kind of important. The thing is, we don't really get a battle of the Pelennor Fields. Although, that said, I do like the ending bit because, well, you'll see, Dan. If in the middle of the book or something, even maybe a small, well, maybe not a smaller one, but like another one at the end involving Gilthanas and the dragons and
whatnot.
The Kitiara parts are well written. I like them. Parts of Tanis I actually really like for the most part. Like in this part of the novel. At least he's owning what he's doing, except unlike in the first 5 chapters where he's just like, I'll pass the buck to Raistlin because why not? There's no Raistlin to pass the buck to anymore, so he's kind of got to own his
mistakes. So if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to smash that like and that subscribe button as though you were the gods raining down their fury upon Istar.